I love Deaf Kids Connect. I was told so many people I feel like it's like a perfect bridge between my two worlds, like the Christian world, the deaf world, and there's not enough of it. So I've been eating it up when I can. It's been a blessing. So I have a deaf mentor through Bridges, the organization that she's been helping me learn sign language, and I just tell her a lot. Like I just wish there was more resources for Christian deaf parents. And out of nowhere, she was like, "Hey, I found this organization. Thought you might be interested in it." So she sent me the Zoom link to I think the first Zoom meeting that you guys had this year. And I was on vacation at the beach, and I hopped on and I left that meeting being like, oh man, this is it. This is what I needed in my life. Just every now and then, once a month. I wish it was every week. If it was every day, I would join. But I'm so thankful for it. And it was just a random connection. I have no idea how she even knew about it, but she did. And um, yeah, we haven't even talked much about it since then. But she just sent me the Zoom link and was like, "Hey, I heard of this somewhere. Thought you might be interested," and sent it to me. That's where I got connected with it. My son, he was born in almost 2 years ago in March. It'll be 2 years. Um, and I started noticing he passed his newborn screening. So that was, we never had any speculation that he would be deaf or have my family hearing issues right on my side of the family. I have hearing aids. My mom has a Baja. So hearing loss is normal for our family, but not to the extent of like none of us know sign or knew sign language before Rylan, which is our son's name. So probably around 6 months was what I started noticing. Like, shouldn't he be responding to sound by now? Like, I'll like read him books and sing to him, and like he doesn't enjoy it. Like a lot of my parents are like, oh, whenever I sing to my child, they fall right to sleep. And I'm like, that is not the case with my son. And so I started noticing it, and I probably observed it by myself for a month and a half. And then I finally told my husband, like, something feels weird. Like, I don't know that he's responding to sound. And then as we observed it together was when we scheduled an appointment. And goodness gracious, it took forever for doctors to take us seriously. So I think because he passed his newborn screening, everyone just assumed like we're first time parents, we don't know what we're doing. He can hear, just give it time. So that was kind of what we were told. And then it took about a year. It was after his first birthday. So around, I want to say like 13 months was when they did the ABR test. He had like tubes put in and a bunch of different tests done. And they're like, he's fine, he can hear. And then they did the ABR test, and I think he was 13 months and said that he was profoundly deaf um, in both ears. I think it took 2 hours for him, but it was really long. But it was good that we got the results immediately afterwards, whereas most other tests we had to wait forever to get things back. But we got the results immediately, so um, we started learning sign language before that point because I mean, he was over a year old. We knew that like, we would be banging pots and pans behind his head and he was completely unresponsive. So we started learning sign language, I want to say around 9 months for him. Um, Maybe a little, I don't know, sometime around there. We went to an in-person class where we live and had a deaf instructor, and that was our first introduction to the deaf world. Um, and she had introduced us. Actually, used to work with. We had it's called Bridges. It's a deaf organization in Tennessee. They have three different locations, and one of them's in our area. And whenever I worked, their office was in the same office that I worked in. So I knew of them because of my old job. So I got connected to them really easily. So anyway, we once we got the official diagnosis, we were like, okay, like there wasn't a lot of, I think the grief was like at like 6 months where we were like, what is happening? Like very confused, kind of shocked. Um, and just a lot of the like what if games, like what if he is deaf? Like what if he can't ever hear us? What if he'll never be able to hear my voice? Um, and that like grief cycle was there and it was very present at the beginning, but I feel like it was very short lived for us. I feel like the Lord gave us, by his grace only, just a perspective of like, the Lord is sovereign and he is faithful. And if he has ordained your son to be deaf, then he has entrusted you guys to be his parents. And sure, you're hearing, but that doesn't mean you can't learn sign language. And he just helped us like navigate through a lot of our confusing thoughts early on, that to when we got the diagnosis, we weren't like sad or overwhelmed or upset. It was almost like, okay, glad to finally have an answer. Glad to know now we can move forward accordingly. And so, um, I guess at that point, moving forward, we kind of just like cranked it up of like we've got to learn the language. We've got to teach. We've got to communicate with him. And it's been hard. I would say it's been really hard to learn sign language. My husband, he works a lot of hours, and so it's tricky with like I'm learning it, and then he'll come home and try to learn from me, and I'm not fluent, but I'm teaching my husband who's not fluent, and we're just figuring it out. Um, Church is difficult. We're super involved with our church, but it's a hearing only church and there's no one there that knows sign language. So we're in the exploration stage of like looking for other churches, but there's not a lot of good churches in our area for deaf people. So yeah, we're in the middle of that right now. And then um I'm trying to think what else. He we were trying to see if he would be a candidate for a cochlear implant. Found out they did one test and he has really weird anatomy with his cochleas. So the first doctor was like, "Yeah, I don't think we can do it." But he referred us to Vanderbilt, who they specialize in cochlear implants for like interesting cases. So we went there. The doctor felt like he could do it, so we ended up moving forward with it. So 2 weeks ago, he had the surgery. He had his activation appointment on Wednesday and has not been responding to sound. So that's very fresh. Yeah. Yes. So I don't know. There's a lot of like unknowns, and we we went into the surgery saying like whatever happens happens. If he can hear, that's fine. If he cannot hear, that's fine. Um, Either way, ASL is going to be his primary language and primary method of communication, and that has to be our first priority regardless of what happens. So I'm thankful to have had that going into the surgery. But the frustrating part for me is like, did we just go through a really, really hard surgery for nothing? That's just challenge. Like for me, seeing him and like pain and stuff was just hard to watch. And I'm like, I like that bothers me more than anything. I'm like, whether he can hear or not is fine. It's just what we went through is just frustrating. So that's like what we're currently dealing with, is back to like trying to get doctors to take us seriously. Like, no, he's really not responding to anything. um, so I don't know. Sorry, that one's fresh. We're still navigating that. Um, but yes, I feel like we were introduced to sign language probably at 9 months, have been learning it ever since. We're trying to be as involved as possible in the deaf world here, trying to find churches here. We're looking at moving, closer to, I don't know, we don't know where. We thought about moving closer to Knoxville. They have a deaf school in Knoxville. But we just don't feel at peace about it for some reason. So we're just weighing our options and wondering like, do we need to move somewhere else? Is what is the Lord calling us to, and we're just kind of stuck here until we have a more clarity and more direction. But yeah, I feel like our priority is communicating with him, obviously. Um, and for me, it's like I want to be able to disciple my kids well. and it's hard to do that when I'm not fluent in the language. So just taking it one day at a time, and just every day I'm just praying like, Lord, give me what I need for this day. And Rylan is only a year and a half, so he doesn't know that I don't know sign language well. Like he has no idea. Um, and we'll get there. Like it'll just be a long process and it'll take time, but the Lord's been gracious in helping us learn, I feel like quickly. Um, like I can have conversations with deaf people now and actually be able to hold my own in the conversation. And that's very great because I can go to events and not just feel clueless the whole time. So the Lord has brought us a long, long way. Family's tricky. Family's hard. My immediate family, my mom is learning sign language, and my sisters are trying. My dad's trying. But there's a lot of people in our life that really um, have had this perception of like the cochlear implant is going to fix him and it's going to heal him and it's going to make him better. And so we've had to really just be like, just advocate for him and remind people that the Lord created him the way he is and he's perfectly fine, and actually he's probably the happiest kid that I know. And I don't know that like this is going to heal him, like the Lord created him this way. And so that's been fun to navigate with family. And it's hard because we're very close to our family. So yeah, but now he's going on 2 years. In March he'll be 2. We've got a little sister in the picture now who's 9 weeks old, and she is definitely hearing. She responds to every sound that we make. It's hilarious. And I'm used to like not using my voice to talk to Rylan. Like I try to sign as much as possible, and now I have a hearing child in the mix that I'm like signing to her, and then I'm like, oh, I can also talk to her. So it's so weird. It's so weird. We're trying to figure it out, but it's all just every day I'm like, what is life? Like this is crazy. It is just a mixed bag. And some days we're like, the Lord is so good and look what he has shown us, and he has brought us through so much. And there's other days that I'm like, Lord, what are we to do with this? Like we're completely helpless. And today's been one of those where I'm like, we just went through this massive surgery and like nothing, like we have no response. And he's just reminding me like, Tyler, like I have spoke life into existence. I have been in control from beginning, and I will be in control until the end. And you can trust me. Like I have a plan and I have a purpose, and this is part of it. This is part of the journey. And if he wanted that to be part of the journey, then we can trust him in that. But it's a lot of going back to those um essential truths and reminding ourselves of it. So yeah, it's a journey, sometimes isolating, but um thankful for the community that we do have, even if it's not like directly in our city. Even just this kind of stuff, I'm like, I'm just glad that there's other people out there that we can talk to.